Hello guys, this is Almir. It's time for another episode, Commuting with a Software Engineer. Another beautiful day in Southern California here in Orange County. I'm stuck in traffic, but that's okay. I'll be talking software engineering today, so that should be fun. Before I proceed, okay, I'm stuck now, totally. It's like a parking lot here on 405. Let me switch my glasses. Today's topic is going to be feature toggles and why they are so important in software development. I'm not going to get into the details how feature toggles are implemented behind the scenes, but I'll give you an example why they should be used so that you can apply it in proper places during software development in order to prevent problems or downstream impacts. When you work in, for example, back in the day when we worked in monolithic applications, feature toggles were very crucial. Let's assume you're working on a project and you modified hundreds, if not thousands of files. It's a huge project, waterfall approach, you're developing, and now you're ready to go into QA environment. You pass QA environment, you go into stage environment, which is a step just before production. So you're sitting in stage environment and there's another team that catches up with you as well, and they also are sitting in stage, they're ready to go to production, but their work is a separate ticket, but your code overlaps or has intersection with their code. So now let's assume your business decides that your project, not for technical reasons, is going to be put on hold and you cannot go to production. What are you going to do? I mean, what is the approach you're going to take? One approach is you go back, you roll back, undo all your changes, do the proper merging so that so you only leave the other team's code in the code base. But that's not the right approach. The approach is to have a feature toggle introduced in your code for multiple features that you're introducing, or even one that wraps and the whole project. So in case you want to disable all of your functionality at once, maybe you have a single feature toggle for all that. So what you do in that case, you're sitting in stage environment, you're getting ready to go to production, and somebody tells you you need to stop. You cannot go. So how do you turn off your functionality now? You can basically flip the switch on these feature toggles, and you're guaranteeing to the other team that your code is not going to run in production. Yes, they will drag your code to production, but your code is never going to be run because you turned off the feature or the set of features that you're introducing. Obviously, in the early days, the feature toggle mindset has to start from day one when you're coding. So the first line of code you write, you should ask yourself, if I deploy this code, even though you're coding in a feature branch, you should ask yourself, what would happen if I deploy this to production now? Will I negatively impact production? And second, what would happen if somebody makes changes on top of my code and they decide that my code is not going to cannot go to production? That's the mindset you have to have from day one. When you have that mindset from day one in programming or in your software development, then later when you get into QA environment, stage environment, it's easy because you're already thought of introducing feature toggle. You introduced it, but introducing feature toggle, it's not. There are two things to it. You have to test it with feature on, and you have to remind yourself to as well test it with it being off. But what typically gets forgotten is testing the feature toggle flag with the feature being off, because most likely you're going to go to production with the feature on and you forget to test that aspect. If you do not test it early in the days or in early in the dev environment or in the QA environment, then you don't have the confidence that that feature or toggle will actually work. So when business tells you you need to put your project on hold or your features on hold, you cannot go to production, and you're sitting in stage environment, you don't want to now impact everybody else who's queued up behind you. With 100% confidence, you should be able to say, yes, I'm turning off this feature. I'm giving you full confidence, and my promise that my code is not going to run in production and there will be no negative impact in production. So that's one aspect of feature toggles, deploying to production. And basically, I like to call this in sports. When I played basketball back in the day, we used to say defense is your offense. So in this case, you're basically applying little defensive steps, which are called feature toggles. You're being a little bit protective, but then when it's time, you can use it as an offensive move. Because in this case, when business says we're putting your project on hold, then you can still proceed forward and allow other teams to go, because now you have options. The second aspect of feature toggles that I wanted to talk about is it's dependency between teams. So let's step forward into microservices architecture and microservices world. The whole point of microservice architecture is that teams are not dependent on each other. You define the interface between and how APIs talk to APIs. You agree on those contracts, but deploying my microservice should not be dependent on you deploying your microservice. Maybe at runtime they're dependent on each other, but when it's time to deploy, I shouldn't be asking you, can I deploy or should you deploy first? I'm sure there are exceptions, but 98% of the time, you should not be dependent on somebody else to deploy your microservice. At runtime, yes, you will use them, but deployment is a separate thing. So what does that mean? Even though microservices are small, introducing feature toggles or stubbing out specific piece of code is so crucial in microservices as well. If I stub my feature, I can go to QA environment, I can promote my code even to stage and even to production with that feature turned off. If nobody's calling it, there's no harm. I don't need to coordinate with you. Yes, eventually you will deploy your microservice. You will go into QA environment. You will then tell me, Almir, can you go turn on that feature? I can go in QA environment and just flip the switch and enable that functionality. I don't need to deploy any code. I'm already all the way in production. The same thing. That other team, in this case you, go to stage environment. You can tell me, turn on the switch. I turn it on because you're ready, you deployed your code. You can now utilize my functionality all the way to production. This is how you alleviate or avoid the chaos on the floor and all the dependencies between microservice teams, because with microservices, if you don't do this, it actually is worse than monolithic application. There's so much coordination that has to happen between the teams, and if these teams are truly autonomous teams, they might not know about each other's functionality and all these things. I mean, the communication just goes down when you have autonomous teams, which means that you have more responsibility in coding your microservices right and introducing feature toggles in order to avoid any of these communication problems. Let's see, there's the traffic here. Okay. So that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about today. Feature toggles, the importance of feature toggles. Maybe some other day I'm going to talk about the implementation and some examples of where you need to stub your code out or where you need to introduce features. One simple example is if you introduce a brand new method in your code or brand new API, you don't need to stub it out or introduce feature toggle. By whole nature of being a new, if nobody's going to consume it, there's no harm. But if you're changing an existing feature or you're introducing a sub feature with an existing feature, and now you need to open it up. You're modifying existing code instead of adding new functionality in your code. That's where feature toggles are crucial. Okay, I'm almost at work here, getting off the freeway. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you like my videos, and keep geeking out. I'll see you in the next episode.